Hello and welcome to the Real Eyes Realize podcast. I'm Christina Roberts-Enneking, and I am so grateful to welcome you to this podcast where we witness life and service dancing together. In each episode, we feature everyday people creating ripple effects, actualizing love, aka real positive ripples in their families, communities, and our world at large. These are the sparks that inspire action, heart-centered service, and courageous truth-telling for us all. So wherever you are, walking, driving, or simply sitting still, we invite you to listen deeply, reflect openly, and join us in discovering the real ripple effects actualizing love in this world. Let's take a listen. All right, I am so excited to have this podcast with a good friend and an amazing individual in our world, Christopher Robinson. So before we get into the podcast questions, let me just let our listeners know who this individual is. Chris is a seasoned facilitator, program manager, and leadership development professional with over 15 years of experience supporting large organizations across industries, from retail to technology. He's recognized for his engaging and energetic facilitation style, exceptional communication skills, and proven ability to drive change management initiatives. Christopher excels at designing and delivering impactful training programs using a variety of modalities and is highly regarded for his talent in building strong relationships and lasting partnerships. And I am going to double down on all of that because I've had the pleasure of working with Chris in this capacity. And I just wanted to say, Christopher, you are incredible. And every time I get up in front of a room, I oftentimes will say to myself, I just want to channel Chris, be like Chris, because there is this just magnetism that you bring. So I would like to, first of all, just know a little bit about you and what are some of the pillars that brought you to where you are here today?
Well, hello, Christina. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I think some of the pillars, I think a lot of personality and kind of charisma that I have really comes from my family. I come from a very big family. We're always loud and laughing and having fun and cracking jokes to one another. And so I really try to bring that energy to almost everything that I do, ranging from my personal life to even work, as you rightly noted. So I think that's one of the biggest pillars. And then just surrounding myself with people who kind of get my sense of humor and kind of really have fun with me as I laugh at myself 95% of the time as well. So I would say that's one of the biggest pillars there.
I love that. So tell us a little bit. I know you come from a big family. I'd love to know more about that beautiful family, where you kind of came from and your trails across the country, United States mostly, but I know you've traveled all over the world.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that beautiful root source for you.
For sure. So I'm originally from Maryland, although I usually would say DC, but from Maryland. I grew up with my mom and my two sisters, and we had a very great upbringing together with family and things like that. And then when I was about 12 or so, my mom and my eventual stepdad, we moved to Delaware. And so when I tell like my origin story, sometimes I go back and forth. I'm from Maryland sometimes, or from DC sometimes, or from Delaware sometimes, but it's all within that region. And I would say I was in Delaware from about ages 12 to 19. By the time I graduated high school, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And honestly, I needed to come to grips with my sexuality and figure out kind of how I was going to approach that. And this was quite interesting at the time because I grew up in the evangelical church. And so I didn't really feel like it was a safe environment for me to explore and to try to understand myself, what I was feeling. And so someone mentioned to me one day that I had a good voice for the radio. And at this point, I was involved in the church. I'd done some teaching, some preaching. And so I'd been, comfortable with speaking in front of audiences just by teaching and by virtue of doing that. And so when they said, I think you have a good voice for the radio, I said, you know what? It was an aha moment. I think you're right. I Googled the top radio broadcasting schools in the country. There were two that came up, one in Connecticut, one in Minnesota. I'd never been to Minnesota. I'd never been to the Midwest. So naturally I said, okay, then I'm going to Minnesota. And so don't forget, I'm 19 at the time. And at this time, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a boxer. I wanted to be a firefighter. All these things I told my parents I wanted to be. And so imagine the day I say, okay, everybody, I got it. I want to be a radio personality. I want to parlay that to being a political news analyst. And I'm going to go to radio broadcasting school in Minnesota to do it. My mom said, absolutely not. What do you know about Minnesota? My dad said, Jan, you got to let him be a man. You got to let him go. And so luckily, dad went out. And so without knowing anyone or anything, we all drove out to Minnesota. And that's all she wrote. And so my parents, and we like toured the school. We looked at apartments. And then they drove back to Delaware. And I was there in Minnesota to make a life for myself. And I was 19 at the time. And so it was, when I look back on it now, I think, what were you thinking? But then you could not tell me that that was not the right thing to do. I was so steadfast, and I just knew that was the right thing to do, and it was going to work out. So that's how I got from the Delaware, Maryland area to Minnesota, pursuing radio dreams originally.
Yeah. Well, so say more. So I know you went into the radio broadcasting, and then you talked about like going into tech companies. And so there was more to your path, I know, even after Minnesota. So I'm sure there's some highlights there, and we're going to dive into that. But continue going. Tell us a little bit more about the roadmap to where you are today.
Perfect. And so I did graduate from radio broadcasting school. Then I went back and got my bachelor's in communication studies. By the time I'd done that, I realized there was not a lot of money in radio, and I had loads to pay. So maybe I should diversify my efforts a little bit. Around that time, I was working at Lifetime Fitness, and I was working as a front desk supervisor. So just, welcoming people into the club, hoping that they had a good workout. And I really like this gig because I'm a big tennis fan, and I got to play indoor tennis for free. So I'm like, yes, I would do that. And so thinking about my ability to kind of build relationships, there was a woman named Sharon who would come in almost every day to the club. And I would just have a nice conversation with her as she was coming in and coming out, nothing more, nothing less. And so one day she asks me, if you're looking for any other job opportunities, I work at Target Corporate. Here is my card. Give me a call and let's see if we have any opportunities that would fit your skill set. And at the time I thought, well, I'm not looking for any other job. So no, I thought to throw the card away. I just, happened to mention to some of my friends, this lady who works at Target gave me a card. And Christina, I didn't know that Target was even headquartered in Minnesota at the time. This is how far out of the space I was. And so everyone said, you should call her back. Target is a great company. So that was like one example of me listening to my circle of influence. And as they coached and kind of guided me to do something that I ordinarily would have said no to. So I said, well, how bad could it be? I gave her a call.
How bad could it be? Not how good could it be, but how bad could it be?
How bad could it be? Let's take a shot. I know nothing about Target. I mean, I went shopping there, but I didn't know anything about working in corporate America. And this goes to show you, Christina, at this time, I was a broke college student. And so I didn't even have a suit at the time. I barely have one now. But I went to JCPenney's. Shout out to anybody who remembers JCPenney's.
Absolutely.
I went and got this big, ill-fitting suit to wear for this interview. Had to make sure I didn't get any stains on it because I needed to take it back to JCPenney after the interview, which I did. So this just goes to show you where I was in my life at that time. Be that as it may, I got the job at Target. I was working as a sourcing specialist. So really working with vendors and managing samples as they were coming into headquarters before they got approved to make it to the floor pad in our actual retail store. So know nothing about that space, but just the entry level kind of salary job. So fast forward, I do this job for maybe like 3 years. I'm in this role, and I really like Target and all those things. And then I joined the LGBT group there at Target. So by this time, I walked into Target as a heterosexual male, came out of the closet while working at Target, and then kind of embraced my new like LGBT identity. And so part of that was joining the LGBT group and really trying to give back and learn more about what was going on. Somehow, I got asked to facilitate a panel discussion for Pride Month with a whole bunch of leaders on the panel. And so at this point, I'm just being the host. I'm playing Oprah Winfrey. I'm trying to engage the audience, ask good, thoughtful questions, listen very instinctively and intentionally so I can ask good follow-up questions. And what do you know? There were people from the learning and development team in that session, unbeknownst to myself. And so they said, we don't know what this is, but we got to have you on this team. And I thought, oh, no. I don't want to go into learning and development. I want to stay in the business. I'm supposed to be in the corner office, making the big money and calling all the shots. That's my path. But a lot of my circle of influence at times said, Chris, you really do have a knack for speaking in front of people, which I don't really think I understood at the time. I just thought everybody can get up and do this. But they have a knack. And I had one leader tell me one time, if you were to run for office, I would vote for you. And so that's when I really kind of started to realize, okay, there's something with the way that I'm communicating that resonates with individuals. So I should pay attention to that. And then you couple that on top of people saying, learning and development is a really good opportunity for you to really maximize your skill set and actually grow and develop. What kind of gave me pause at this time, Christine, is that at that time I was an hourly employee, and the job that they were requesting that for me to kind of apply to and go for was a salary position that was like a couple levels up. So I thought there was no way that I am even going to, get close to this. But again, why not? What's the worst that can happen? Everyone's telling me to do it. I will try it. And so I interviewed, and then Christina, the manager at the time, chose me for the job. And, there were other people that I was, in competition with that were probably more seasoned, far more skilled. But for whatever reason, Christina thought to take a shot on me. And that literally changed my life. That opened up doors for me in learning and development. That allowed me to tap into something that I naturally loved and gravitated toward, but I didn't know that I could actually make a living from doing it outside of, being a pastor or something like that in my worldview at that time.
Yes.
And I still to this day am close with Christina, and I still always thank her. Like, I don't know what you saw, but thank you for taking a shot on me, because that is what led me to get into learning and development to begin with. And that is what took me to Amazon a few years after that, when I moved to Seattle, where another leader took a shot on me, where I don't know that I was the most qualified employee, but for whatever reason, they gave me a shot. Rachel gave me a shot. And I really learned a lot from Rachel about learning and development, how to really show up in these leadership meetings and to really listen to our clients to understand the problems that they were actually trying to solve, even when they didn't have the words to clearly articulate it. And so I really went through a crash course of not just public speaking, but really now we're getting into assessment. We're getting to thinking about clients and how we can use learning and develop learning programs in order to solve business problems. And so that was a whole new layer for me as I kind of embraced this learning and development role there. And so a shout out to Rachel for giving me a shot at Amazon, and Christina for giving me a shot at Target, because without them, I would not have been here today.
Yeah, I love that. And the foundation that you talk about with your mom and your sisters and your stepfather, who were just like, okay, like, it's time. It's time. Go ahead. And I can imagine, as a mother who is now getting ready for her youngest to go off to college, the nest is about ready to be empty on this end. But having a son who you're very strong, you talked about Lifetime Fitness, but for those that can't see you, you're like, working out is important to you. You talked about being a boxer. Coming out of the closet in Minnesota may have been weighing on your mom about, what is this going to be like for my son? Was there any exchange of that conversation, or was it just like, we're going to just see how it goes?
No, there was. So, and to give you a little bit of the timeline, Christina, I moved to Minnesota when I was 19. I didn't come out really to my family until I was maybe like 25 or so. So there was a large span of time there when I was still even trying to figure it out. I was out of Delaware, and I had at this time garnered some really great friends. But funny story, at Target, and I knew it was around the time of when I wanted to start coming out, and some of the people there were trying to set me up with girls. And so I was like, okay, I've got to start telling people, because I'm not a liar by nature. And so this is not going to work for me. I want to be honest with everybody. And so one of my really great friends now, his name is Ryan. I kind of sensed that he was gay. And I was like, okay, well, I know he likes Rihanna. So I'm just going to invent a reason to talk to him. And we struck up a friendship. You rightly noted, that I like to work out. And he's like, well, we should go to the gym sometime. I'm like, yeah, we can go to the gym, sure. We started working out or whatever. And Ryan at this point was my boss only for like 2 weeks. And then he got transferred to a new team. The reason I'm telling the story is because this ushered a whole group of friends that were all working at Target at the time, but they were managers, they were directors, they were very seasoned. And I'm at this time 25, 26. And they welcomed me and I would say practically raised me through my 20s. As I was a late bloomer with coming out, there were a lot of lessons that I still needed to learn, and they were gracious with me. They taught me the ropes. And what I will say is when I finally did come out to them, everybody lies when they say, oh, I didn't know. They all knew what was going on, but they were so gracious to me. They're like, oh, really? You are? And so I just really appreciate them. And that's like Ryan and Ann and Brett and Ethan and Alicia. So a lot of the friends that I learned a lot from. So that is what kind of pivoted. So by the time I actually did tell my family, that was a whole different conversation because my mom was completely surprised and shocked, much to my surprise, because I thought, oh, I'm just going to be calling out the elephant that's in the room.
Yes.
But no, she was completely surprised, but not in the bad way.
Yeah.
And my dad literally said, okay, you're still my son. And if anybody has a problem with it, you can tell them to kiss your new, you know what. And I'm like, you know
I
what,
love
Mom?
that.
I think I could do that. And so, and my mom, she struggled a little bit with it because that wasn't the life that, she envisioned for me. But I would tell you, years later, she mentioned, I had this friend and they said something that was anti-gay. And I said, well, do you have a problem with gay people? Because if so, then we can't be friends. And so this goes to show the journey where my mom might have been a little shaky bakey at the beginning, but she would evolve to become my biggest supporter. And, I miss it, love her dearly. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I just love the way that you are, Chris, the shout out to so many people in your life. You are I just feel like you're filled with gratitude, you're filled with life, you're filled with energy, you're filled with this positive outlook on things. And I just am curious if you could tell your younger self a few messages or the wisdom from Christopher Robinson of today, what would that be? Or for anybody that might be struggling with their identity and trying to figure out how to navigate this world.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish it would have been to trust the people around you to support you the way that they needed to, that you needed them to support you. Because I think, and I mentioned earlier that I wouldn't have been able to come out in Delaware. And I don't really know that that's entirely true because I never tried. Well, I did try one time and it didn't go very well. So that was enough for me to say, that's enough for me. But ideally, there were so many people there, and being involved in church, I think that was the place. Even though I'm not as religious now, we really connected as brothers and sisters at that time in Christ. And so the art of being as vulnerable as a 16 or 17-year-old could be at that time is something that really sticks with me today. And I think that is the through line to all of the relationships and friendships that I've had over the years is this, I think, desire to be known and to be vulnerable. I've had a third of my life was spent trying to be something that I was not. And I do not want to spend time doing that anymore. And so this being as vulnerable and as open as I can be for my faults and, for all the good attributes that I might bring.
Yeah.
That's really important to me. So I say that to say, if I could go back to my younger self, I would say, open up and give people an opportunity to actually support you. But at the same time, also be smart and pick the right people to trust with those critical things.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing from you, and we have a lot of, individuals that talk about like their journey and there's parts of the journey that we do solo. There's parts of the journey that we recruit, the tribe around us that we know is there to support us, whether or not they're living today or even beyond and, carrying the torch for others. So I'm curious, when you think about this village of supporters in your life, you've talked about people by name. What are the attributes that you find that you resonate with so that you can fully trust them?
Yeah. So, it's funny. Over the years, I've realized that I'm historically known for having separate friend groups. I do not always like to cross pollinate because I feel like you have different friend groups with different reasons, and I have different sides and different interests and things like that too. And so I would say a couple of things. One is freedom to be authentically myself. And I always want to allow space for other people to do that, whether I agree or disagree. And there are times when that happens, but ideally I would not want anybody to show up any differently than they absolutely want to. So that's the first thing. The other thing is ability to laugh with and at me. As I mentioned earlier, like I will laugh at myself before you have an opportunity to laugh at me. I like to think that's a bit of self-awareness. And so having the ability to have fun and to experience life together is one thing. The other thing, Christina, I think is taking time to be intentional with going layers deeper. And so there are some surface level phrases, and I say that lovingly because that also has a place where I don't want to have to think. I don't want to have to explore. Let's just go to the movie. We'll go, play pool, go bowling. And sometimes that's enough. But there are other times when I'm like, okay, I am going through anxiety. Maybe it's about depression. Maybe I'm just like losing my way and I need to talk to somebody who can really understand me and that I can really kind of express things in a really unfiltered way. And I think those are kind of like some of the through lines that I have in almost all of my friendships. I can go deeper with some than I can with others, but there are layers there, which I really enjoy. We travel well together. I think about my best friend, my brother, DeQuint, and I would say that he is probably the one that I could spend almost every day with and never get tired of him. Now, granted, he ticks me off like nobody else, period. But at the same time, you never have that friend, Christina, where you could just be sitting there and we're not even talking. We're just watching the TV show and we just look at each other at the same time and just laugh. And we know exactly what we're laughing at. We don't even need to talk about it, communicate. And so it's kind of cultivating those types of relationships, which I might add, happened over time. I've been very fortunate, even though I've had different friend groups. Some of my friends, Nikki, we go back to middle school and Rachel. And so it is being open to building new friendships along the way, but then also spending time and being intentional with devoting time to some of my oldest friends. And P.S., we live all over the country, all over the globe. And so when I say intentional, that is my friend Ryan. We FaceTime every week, most of the time on Fridays. He has a child, he has a husband, but it's about being intentional and saying that you matter. And I don't care what time zone I'm in, I don't care what state or country I'm in, we're going to make it work. And so those are some of the through lines there. Hopefully you're able to piece all that together.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hearing authenticity, the ability to be vulnerable, the ability to be who you are, and then that intentional, like you matter to me, and then having that be followed in action. It's powerful. And it feels like there's simplicity in that. But why is it so dang difficult sometimes to be able to lean into that? But you find the people where you feel safe in doing that and who could be a good mirror. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So I know that you're going to be going about into some new transitions also, as am I, getting ready for a new location. And so when you think about intentionality of meeting new people and establishing yourself in a new environment, what comes up for you about what you're excited about? And then any challenges that you think you're looking through the open door to?
Yes. So I would say what's exciting for me is the opportunity. So I'm newly relocated to the Bay Area. So now, this is funny, Christina, because now that I am 40, I've realized that it's harder to make friends the older that you get, potentially, at least for me in my experience. And I've never really had a hard time making friends, to be honest with you. But now I'm like, okay. But I think it's mostly me because I've changed and my priorities have changed. So what I'm excited about, especially now being in forwarding and being excited about this decade, is surrounding myself with like-minded people that are interested in doing the things that I am interested to do now and more interested to do as I, age. And so what I'm trying to say, Christina, is I'm slowing down a little bit.
Your slow down, I think, is a different pace, but I'm glad to hear you say that.
That's what they talk. It'll be like a movie night, a game night. We can go to a nice cocktail bar, have a wine, but I need to be in bed by 9:30. Close to night, okay? And so it is really just like leaning in that space for the most part. But then also, I've always been drawn to individuals that could kind of stimulate me intellectually, especially when there are things that I might not just pick up a book and read, but through conversations, through observing you, I learn through osmosis. And so I'm excited to expand my friend group, to grow some friends. And luckily, my friends Eric and Justin moved down to the Bay Area right before I did. So I knew a couple of people and we've been kind of navigating and growing our friend group together. So I'm excited to continue that space. I think with kind of challenges I see is proximity. I live about 30 minutes south of the Bay, and most of the action is in SF. So that actually has been a larger challenge than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be challenging. I didn't realize it was going to be this challenging. And then also, Christina, I mentioned I'm slowing down, and it takes a lot of effort to get out here. And when I say get out here, one of the ways that I've been able to kind of build really deep friendships, Christina, is one-on-one time.
Yeah.
I very rarely am like the party guy that's wants to be around 20 different people. Like I can do that for like short periods of time, but my bread and my butter has really been having one-on-one conversations. That's when I'm able to go deeper. That's when I'm able to really invest and have others invest in me. But that takes time and that takes energy. And so that is kind of like, how do I continue to select the right people to do that with? Because I don't have the bandwidth to do that for everybody. So those are the things that are kind of challenging. But, I embrace that as a part of being in a new environment and really trying to cultivate a strong and healthy friend group here.
Yeah, I love that. I kind of find I relate to that too. You can be an extrovert in a room, you can connect people together, you can be the energy, and then yet the recharge on the battery personally is like home, individual time or one-on-one where you can kind of go deeper. Or even I'm noticing as I'm aging, which I'm a little bit more aged than you, it's that ability to just like stay in a state of presence of mind. And that has different practices for everybody, whether or not it's a walk with a podcast or if it's an ability to meditate or what have you. And so thinking about investing time in ourselves, I am finding more and more is what's helping to stay grounded in the midst of a lot of chaos going on in our individual worlds and the world at large. Yeah. I heard this, Sebastian Maniscalco, I don't know if you've ever heard of him as a comedian, but I heard him talking on a show and I think he's getting ready to turn 60 or already turned 60. And he said, so here's my deal. I am not accepting new applications for new friends at this point in my life. Like, I'm good. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not close to meeting new friends, of course, but like, I'm not out there trying to find a whole lot of people to hang out with.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
That is so true because I was thinking, okay, I already have I have a whole host of friends in Seattle that I know. Like everybody, I moved to the Bay from Seattle. So I'm like, but I was in Seattle for about 9 years. So how am I supposed to cultivate the same type of group here? And I've been here for less than a year. And so, yes, I definitely agree with that. I'm not necessarily looking for, actually, I am looking for new friends. So I guess the situation is
applications are open.
Yeah, applications are open. Everybody will share my Instagram and my email. It's what they call applications.
Yes, and single status or not? Like maybe we could put that out there too, right?
Yeah, all are welcome. Okay, we turn no one away.
Oh, that's the best. That's the best. And I love your playful spirit. And that's what I think about. Like the people that we do hang out with are those that share like-minded, whether or not it's adventure or travel. And I know that's very important to you too, as well as the downtime and a quiet night of just game night and wine. So, or whatever that might be.
I think, Christina, one other thing I did not mention is, it's funny, some of my friends, they have mentioned to me over the years that they feel like I can be a bit of a contrarian. Which I don't necessarily agree with that per se. However, what I'm trying to illustrate is I'm also drawn to independent thinkers or people who think differently than I do. And so part of that does lead to loving debates and exchange of ideas. And so in addition to just having fun and going deeper with people, it also has allowed me to expand my worldview, challenge the way that I thought about things. And hopefully I've been able to do that with my friends as well. So it's funny, sometimes I'm like, I don't feel like going into these discussions today. But, with all the things that are going on in the world right now, it really does bring up a lot of emotions and different perspectives and things like that. So we really do get in the mix on a lot of those topics as well.
Yeah. And I find that's how we are going to be able to grow, not staying in
Mhm.
our echo chamber of this is what I believe and I'm only going to hang with those that believe me
Mhm.
and agree with me. It's being able to have those conversations and bridge those gaps and being able to kind of come to some newer understandings as an overall
Absolutely.
global family. So when you think about the people that took a chance on you, I'm going to kind of swing back to that for a second, and then we'll start to kind of come into some of our closure. What would you like to say to them? All those people that saw you before you saw yourself, what is
Right.
it that you would love to tell them? And then how do you pay it forward to others that you might see?
Yeah. So the one thing is that I wish I could see through their eyes and see what they saw in me. It's almost like I wish I could see, like, watch myself on video in like my natural habitat, because clearly what I see every day is not the same thing that everyone else sees sometimes, which is completely okay, probably a good thing. But I just have so much gratitude. And so it would always just be thank you for those individuals that believed in me, that coached me, that, sometimes I could be very stubborn at first and say, nope, I'm not going to do that. And it takes me a little bit of time, like, okay, honestly, now that I've slept on it, okay, I can see how this could be a positive for me. Let's give it a shot. And the one thing about having long lasting friends is that we get to learn each other's rhythms. And so they understand, okay, we know that the initial response might be no, but we know that we're going to work to a yes. And let's just work through that process. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so having that grace. And so having great gratitude and just saying thank you to those individuals that took a shot on me, and just really kind of underscoring that I would not be where I am today without not just those individuals, but everybody, friends, family, people in church, people that I meet on the street, people at the professions or the jobs that I've had, have really kind of left a lasting impression on me. So just thank you to everybody.
That's awesome. And what I find with that is there's the gratitude, but there's also this beautiful sense, even though you can be a larger than life individual, there's a sense of humility with
Mm,
that, knowing that we've gotten to where we are because of, and
uh,
even despite all of the people, that have taught us lessons along the way, all the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes. Yes.
So when you think about what tools, you talked about chaos in the world at large and it has conflict, what allows you to stay on that trajectory of optimism, of gratitude, of what is possible rather than getting spun up in the rhetoric of everything that might be a challenge or a problem?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, sometimes I have to take a break from social media and the news at large. There are times when I want to be aware of what's going on, but I try not to go into rabbit holes for extended periods of time. So that helps me to kind of manage that. The other thing is that we have a lot of great things that are also happening in our lives as well. My friends are getting married, they're having children. The children are now starting kindergarten and things like that. And so sometimes it is taking a step out of what's happening globally and then centering in and locking in on all the positive things that we have going on in our lives, and all this growth and self-evolution that we've gone through. People are in therapy, we're reading books, we're really trying to be better versions of ourselves. And that's just not me. That's a lot of the people that are in my circles as well. And so we focus on that. And that kind of helps me kind of see the beauty and light outside of some of the ugly things that may be going on right now. And then lastly, always making time to have a good laugh. There's times to laugh, times to not laugh, but sometimes seeing the humor in things is probably a defense mechanism for me. And it helps me not to dwell too long on the bad things, and to always remember that things are going to get better. And things will continue to improve.
That's awesome. What I'm hearing in this is, and as you know, we typically do a gift for our listeners from each of our guests. And so I would love it if you and I could work together on kind of this kind of list of continuing to stay real and
Mm-hmm.
find your happy in the here and now. And maybe we could
Mm-hmm.
just kind of highlight some of those tips and even some maybe fun podcasts or music that you
Absolutely.
love of like when you just really need to bring it. That'd be fun if you'd be open to share that.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that off the top of my head right now would be house music. So Christina, I'm a big music fan. Disco and house music is where it's at for me. So sometimes you see me in the gym and I'm over there doing a little two-step. I'm probably rocking out. And so sometimes that's my time to and I'll spend maybe an hour and a half at the gym. just me and the music, and I
Yes.
can just focus on whatever. So little things like that also helps too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to help in any way.
I love it. And music, I was just in San Francisco actually on Saturday, listened to Lyle Lovett and his acoustic band playing with the San Francisco Symphony. And
Mhm.
I see him. Here's this honky tonk country singer, right,
Mhm.
from Texas. And he's got this huge, huge orchestra and symphony behind him. And he was just talking about, I never would have imagined that my songs would have been like now in this forum. And you know what he kept on talking about? Were
What's that?
his kids, his
Mhm.
young kids, his family, his life, what he was grateful for. And there was such a reverence and respect for skill sets of everyone brought
Mhm.
together. And I just think you really do a wonderful job of also doing that when you are looking at leading programs. How do we bring the best out in each other? And so I just really wanted to highlight that because you do a
Thank
great
you.
job. And I know that that will carry you forward in amazing ways as well.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
But music too. Like we all have to have our badass playlist. And so house music and disco is going on.
Yes. I mean, were you a disco fan too or no?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Right.
I was born in 70, man.
Look, I love it. Anything I can do a double clap to, Christina, it's a hit for me. It's a
Well,
hit.
I will say when we arrived at the symphony, right? I mean, that's a whole different audience. But what was happening, there was an event in the city where Shibuzi was playing. And I was
Yeah.
like, I kind of want to go over there first. Let's go get our act on and then, we'll come and listen. Anyway, all
Yeah.
good stuff. And I agree. Music is, I think, this beautiful equalizer because we can listen,
Mhm.
we can hear different messages, but there's something that happens to your heart, when you
Mhm.
really feel moved. And that's pretty
Yes.
awesome. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So before we get into our collective questions, is there anything that our listeners can do to either support you or keep in mind so that we can really kind of take a look at this energy continuing to be contagious?
Yeah. So there's one thing that comes top of mind for me. As you know, Christina, both of my parents are deceased now, but my mom's one of her mantras. Do you know the song "I Hope You Dance" by Leanne Womack, also by Gladys Knight? Uh, my mom. So after my dad died, that my mom really adopted that. I hope you dance, and I want you to go forth, and I want you to live your life, despite challenges, despite hurdles, whatever the case may be. And when she passed, I took on that same mantra as well. So every time I hear that song, I think about, okay, this is mom talking to me. She's reminding me that she's still here. But more importantly, it is to still get out there and still dance. And so we're talking about some of the ugly things that are happening in the world right now. And then, people are just really struggling. Prices are up. We have all types of personal issues going on. But throughout all of that, there will still be a way to dance through it with grace and dignity. And I think that goes a long way with me. And so to this point, I even talked to my sisters and mom said, we got to dance. So we got to keep going.
Yes.
And so that would be one mantra that I hope that everyone can kind of lock in on. And I hope that whenever you hear that song, you think about Jan Webb, she's my mom, but you also think about keeping things moving along, even when it doesn't feel like it's going to go anywhere.
I love that. Something between us that we've never known until this podcast. So my grandmother, who was my mom's mom, my mom, oldest of 14 kids, when she passed, she had all of us, all of her family around her. And that was our song. It's our theme
Mhm.
song for my grandma. She left. And there's
Wow.
so much where I feel like I'm carrying the torch of her kind heart forward.
Mhm.
And so when I hear that song too, it feels like it's a message and it's a
Mhm.
great reminder and just the words of that song. So we'll even put that song into our show notes so that if people haven't heard it, take a listen. Many different artists that have done that, but
Mhm.
the words of I hope you still feel small as you stand beside the ocean, and
Mhm.
so many other. Do you know
Mhm.
any other words from the chorus that come to mind?
Uh, I hope you get your fill to eat and never hunger. Like
Yes.
all those types of things. So honestly, I think about that being like what my mom would be telling me, even though she's not here physically, she still wants me to be successful. One anecdote about that, Christina, is remember I was a big wrestling fan. Well, I still watch wrestling. But I was a big wrestling fan when I was younger, and I joined the wrestling team for I don't know why I did this. I'd never wrestled before. I didn't know any of the rules, but I said, you know what? I want to join the
I
wrestling
can
team.
rumble. Why not?
Right. Literally. And I was in 8th grade at the time. And so, Christina, I wrestled every single match and I lost every single time. I had no clue what I was doing. I only got pinned once, but I got outscored every other time. And so at the end of the season, I'm like, Mom, this was terrible. I lost every single match and I'm so embarrassed. I'm never doing this again. And she said, Chris, you lost every single match. It's okay. This is the first time that you ever did something purely because you wanted to do it. You didn't know anybody on the team. You didn't know anybody that was, on the coaching staff. You didn't even know anything about wrestling. You just said, boom, I'm going to do it. And honestly, Christina, I think that has been a very big catalyst for me to say, I'm going to go to Minnesota and I'm going to make it work. I'm going to go to Seattle and I'm going to make it work. I'm going to go to Luxembourg. I'm going to move down to the Bay Area and just trust that I have good discernment and that I'm able to dance through all of these changing elements in my life and still, be better for it. So I kind of trace that all the way back to that time when my mom gave me that little bit of encouragement when I was losing every single week. Well, yes, I'd like to just lead the listeners to it that, like, you never know when you encourage somebody what that might mean, not just for that moment, but how that might have ripple effects in other aspects of their lives as well.
I love that. It is the positive, encouraging feedback can just have spades that you don't even realize in the moment, but later on. And as you know, this podcast is about ripple effects. So what a wonderful drop in the water and that ripple to then take you farther in your life and know that you're going to be safe no matter where you are, what you're doing, and keep dancing. So that's so cool. Yeah. Well, so as we close out this podcast, we typically do collective questions, and there's just rapid fire and first thing on your mind. So let's go ahead and do that before we sign off. What are you currently reading or watching?
Ooh, so watching, I just binged the show called The Pit. Have you seen
a lot of Emmy awards last night from what I hear.
Look, Christina, I didn't want to watch this show. I didn't watch ER back in the day. I really don't love medical dramas, but everybody was saying the show was so good and I don't want to be left out of a revolution. So I said, okay, let me just watch the first episode and see I was locked in. The performances were golden. I thought everybody who won Emmys last night deserved it. And it really did a good job of, I think, kind of highlighting some of the things that are happening in the country as well within the confines of a hospital or ER room. So no, I love that show so much. So awesome. Yeah, that's what I'm binging right now.
The Pit. All right, good. When you think about who you might like to have dinner with and dialogue, anybody past or present, who would it be and why?
Sure. I have two people. Can I go with two or am I cheating?
Of course you can. You can have a bigger dinner. It's yours.
All right, everybody, don't laugh at me. The first one is going to be Jennifer Lopez. And Christina, let me just tell you this. Me and Jennifer Lopez go back to when I was in middle school. The first time I saw her music video for If You Had My Love, it was a rap. It was it. It was it. And then, then I got into all the movies and things like that, but my love for Jennifer Lopez really came from the music. And so I would love to have dinner with her and just kind of pick her brain and understand kind of how she's navigated the industry. And then the other one would be Serena Williams. I love Serena Williams. She is the greatest tennis player of all time in my book. And I would love to be in community with her and just kind of pick her brain about her life, her experiences, and kind of what has driven her to be the greatest of all time.
That is awesome. You probably could talk about your wrestling days and how technique might really support you. It's something that you wanted to achieve, right?
Wait, so out of the rope, Christina, that's what that is? Got it.
No, because I see your passion and I see everything that you put your mind to, you make happen. You're like fireworks. Yeah. And then it's like, oh yeah, then this too is good, right?
Yeah.
So I love it. Oh, Serena and J-Lo. And I imagine you and J-Lo would be dancing by the end of that dinner.
Honestly, I'm going to figure out how to get in the studio because in my head, in my heart of hearts, I want to be a singer. I cannot sing. Like if you hook me up with some auto-tune, I could probably come up with something. And all I need is one hit, Christina. Just one hit.
You're okay with being a one-hit wonder, huh?
Yes. Oh, one hit, and then I'm good. I will sell it to the sunset.
That is so awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, my final question for you is just, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful today for my friends Chris and Michael. They're letting me use their space in order to join this podcast with you today. And so I thank them for welcoming me into their space and for opening it up for me. They got these nice lights and everything here. And so, yes, I'm grateful for both of them.
That's great. And Chris, so grateful for you. So grateful for our relationship and how we've known each other and how that will continue to grow in our friendships. And thank you for taking the time today to share your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. This has been so much fun. Have me back anytime.
All right. Thank you for joining us for another impactful conversation on the Real Eyes Realize podcast. We hope the stories shared today spark reflection, courage, and love in your own journey. Stay connected with us at realize.love and on our social channels, where you will find resources, guest highlights, and ways to keep creating ripple effects of love in the world. And if you know someone with a story worth sharing, we would love to hear from you. Hello at realizerealize.com. Until next time, be true, be bold, be real, and be you.